All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Happy Hour Holidaze, your go-to podcast for business, entrepreneurship, and life stories. I'm your host every single week, Manny Fresh. We got the resume Sean Fabre, co-host, and in studio today we got the ultimate capitalist, the man who wears many hats over here. He has Manna Homes. He has private equity. He's got everything under the umbrella to make money. The ultimate hustler, Manny Manna.
Thank you, guys. How's it going today?
No, man, it's not going too bad, man. You know, we got our new podcast studio, so we're excited to be in this bitch.
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you get through that whole intro without,
Right.
talking about this?
Well,
Yeah.
definitely in Fabre Framework Studios. We're going to have a nice sign up there. This is going to be the new Fabre Framework Studios, and we'll have many podcasts here. If you do want to start your own podcast, you can reach out to us, and we can do a consultation and see if you could do your own podcast, and that we would help you run it through all the platforms and everything. So please reach out. Happy Hour Holidays, and we can help you with that. So, Manny,
I definitely would endorse that.
Endorse it, baby. Cheers. Hey, cheers. We've had cheers to Happy Hour Holidays. So, Manny, let's just go, something that's very interesting, and I always hear everybody talking about what's the state of real estate currently right now with the interest rates and everything. What is your take on the state of real estate currently? I mean...
All right. Okay.
It's a good
first question. I love it.
I love it.
Because I see, every morning I watch always the morning news while I'm getting ready to go to the office, right? And there's always a segment talking about that.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, right? Yeah. Because I have a much bigger, how do I say, opinion, right, of some of these so-called experts that they bring on, right? I know that you guys are part of the old guard, and I respect that. Okay? I do, right? Most of y'all I do a lot of business with, and we're on the same boards and committees, right? But you're also the ones that have excelled in your careers and have continued to learn more, right? And those are the same ones you've worked with my grandfather or other members of my family. But nonetheless, it's the other ones that aren't really part of the association, really aren't driving anything too much, but make these huge statements and hasn't gone after any kind of CE certification, designation, anything that to me would validate skill. So you're going off of information and education that you learned 20 years ago?
Or what they may have learned on like Instagram or TikTok and took it as fact.
I love that.
And you see a lot of people parroting, and a lot of these reels are fake.
Oh yeah,
they're not even real, and people don't even take
open
the
up
time.
This LLC, and and they'll give you $10,000 or $100,000 credit line. Yeah,
which blows my mind that people are actually doing that. They don't actually take the time to research what was in that video and see if it was fake or not.
No, you know what's funny about that is that,
and I'm assuming those are the people that you're talking about, the ones with the biggest opinions and the least amount of knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they love to portray how successful they are, right? And what they're teaching. But that's not how they make their money. They make their money on what they're teaching, which is bullshit and disinformation.
Yeah. Well, they're making their money on views, so they'll just say whatever the hell they have to in order to get the views.
Exactly. What's better than clickbait? Clickbait.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, clickbait.
Right then, on that, first little shot of that reel, to promote it, $100,000 credit line, right, for new LLC. The economy's hurting, man.
Yeah.
People are fucking doing some desperate ass shit, and we can get into that later. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Right? Just for a fucking paycheck.
Yeah.
People that I would have never expected breaking fucking ethics, principles, shit, even their own morals, right? Just for that paycheck. That's when you've lost sight altogether in what you're doing.
So is that what you meant by the state of real estate? That's where it's at right now?
I think right now you're going to see a massive transition, right? And you're already seeing it. Right,
like a decline in prices, or
you're going to see
do you see the interest rates adjusting at all, or are we seeing like a pretty stable? Right now I think they're about 7.25 or 7%. I mean, are we gonna see anything better than that rate right now?
I don't think even if we did, even if a half a point was given, by the Fed, it's not going to make a difference. Our tariffs, and this is what everybody doesn't understand, right? I love, all respects, quite a few of y'all private equity money managers, VCs, that heavily are focused in more real estate. And then all you investors, they come along and, come to people like me for private equity or even hard money and blah, 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 blah. And now we fast forward 6 months to a year later, and now we're here, and all of them are in foreclosure for some reason.
Yeah.
What do you think about the massive gains that these private equity firms have done by purchasing up houses in, let's say, Tampa, and now a lot of the houses aren't affordable because they jacked up their appraisal values by selling them at a ridiculous rate during COVID, and now people who do want to purchase a house cannot purchase a house for the simple fact that the value in Tampa has just increased astronomically over the last 4 years.
It has. And now if you look, you'll see all my data, right, in the software that we've had commissioned, to get built. You'll see 3 to 4%, you know what I'm saying, in a lot of different markets of a decline. You're going to rarely see a big appreciation. And I like to factor in 3 or 4%,
Tampa is
up or down as a margin of error. Oh. You know what I mean? With all these builders that came in, there's a couple of them I really respect, Cigar City builders, with Danny Garcia, and shout out to him. Excellent building, you know what I'm saying? His price point's on point, within the area that he's keeping it at.
Which is South Tampa, I'm assuming?
Yeah, South Tampa, the Bayshore area, all that, and which, shit, if they were selling the house that was there prior for the same fucking price, right, that he just built one that's twice the size and built better, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. But if we're going to talk about the bigger picture, right, and to answer that question really with a better explanation and longer, it's no one is factoring in macroeconomics. No one's factoring in everything that Trump has put into place when he came in.
For example?
Politics, the tariffs, okay? All right, you want to talk about home prices? Okay, well, let's get about the tariffs, okay? And people, again, don't factor this in, right? We're getting stuff in from multiple different countries, okay? Some of the ones that are our biggest ones, right, are the ones we have the highest tariffs, okay? Now, if you want to get down to the bare bones of anything.
Are you talking about building supplies?
There you go.
Okay.
The manufacturing, right, of it, because now we're importing it in. And then we're talking about logistics, and everything is just skyrocketed. Because everything's now got to sit there. All the shipping containers that have come in since these, policies have been put into place are now sitting there. And the owners of these corporations are having to eat massive, dock fees every month. And I know this because this is why I'm getting into this, is because of the infrastructure. We got to have an infrastructure, right, whenever we're building new construction, right? That's the biggest part. If we don't have that, then what are we building?
What percentage of imports are actually building homes in America?
Honestly, that number, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
Well, then I guess you can't really make an argument that the tariffs are...
Oh, I can.
Are impacting house values when you said that they were decreasing
everything. You got to remember, there's not just one variable that'll fucking influence something. Okay, right? Right now, we're seeing unprecedented things. For example, last year, election year, right? Historically, interest rates go down. Did that happen? No.
Why was that?
We set a fucking precedent. It defied every political season.
So are you saying Biden economics didn't work in the last year of his presidency, causing massive a 40-year high in the inflation rate?
I think a lot of things that both parties have done have caused now.
Well, listen, if you can blame Trump for one thing, you got to blame the other president for the other.
I do.
Because inflation rates were at a 40-year high.
I think Biden could have done a lot more, but he spent a tremendous amount of U.S. dollars, right?
Taxpayer money.
Sending it overseas without any fucking oversight. Or let me take that back. There was.
Without any paper trail.
Until somebody decided to bring in, right, a third party, right, forensic, accounting and
Auditing.
everything else, right, for full scale audit, everything that went over to Ukraine. And again, I'm not supporting the war and our help, but I believe that there should be limitations. And that blank check while Biden was in office and given out, that I have a fucking problem with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's kickbacks, man. I mean, if you're going to give somebody some money, you're like, hey, man, I'm going to give you this amount of support.
Right. You know,
well,
but then,
the real question is,
but then when you audit it, right, after all these
40%
years, right?
After 40% of it, they don't know where it went.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a big fucking number, right?
Yeah.
We know where it went.
We're talking about billions of dollars we have handed over, if not hundreds of billions, right?
Hundreds of billions.
And then we got 40% of the shit that we sent
missing.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it go?
All right. Where'd it go?
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
Oh, I know.
Because of this kind of money printing, inflation occurred.
Right. You know when a lot of fortunes get made during wartime?
Of course.
During political, and we're not just at other wars. We're having a political war right fucking here in our own home. And it has gotten so bad, right? I got people coming after me anonymously.
What for?
Because when
you can get into that.
I'll get into it. I'll get into a little bit. I love it when they do it anonymously because, you know.
Yeah, you gotta know. I mean, come on, man. If you're gonna do it, just do it straight up. But ain't nobody gonna kill you. Right. But if you got the balls to send a piece of paper,
I mean,
see, because here's what they forget.
United Healthcare guy got.
You're gonna know who it is at the end of the day when you see the day in court. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be like, oh, there's the name.
Well, here's even bigger, right? Check this out. We've already filed litigation, okay, right? And even though it's been sent anonymously every time. Okay, right?
It's a fucking hard word.
Anonymously every time. There is no reason that I can't file a civil suit. Anyways, not even having 100% confirmation because it's a civil suit. Now we have enough right to know, right? And then because of the circumstances of who these packages were sent to, right? And how they were fabricated, right? They committed numerous felonies. So, you know, maybe they're watching, maybe they're not. I know they stalk my social media, and I'm transparent about everything. The one thing I learned over the years, and Manny number 2 of years known me since, you know.
Manny number 2.
We're in our 40s now, since our early 20s.
Yeah, I would say.
Damn, you're in your 40s, Manny number 2?
I'm getting close.
Yeah, right.
I'm turning 38 this year.
Yeah. We were the OGs, I guess.
Yeah, OGs.
You know, you came in right behind everybody else that cemented it, and that was the last of that generation, bro.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, because you're only 3-4 years younger than the rest of us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were with us.
Yeah, I know.
You just came in after we took it over.
Yeah.
That would have been in 2006.
Yeah, I graduated in 06.
Yep.
Really?
Yep. Because that's when we all, back in the day as promoters, got big enough to buy out the companies that we were working for.
I was still in high school.
Yeah. But he got the Mr. Manny number 2 over here got the high good.
I like how you
love Jackson days.
I
love him.
I mean, technically you're older than he is, so that would mean you were born first.
Yeah, so number 1.
I turned 42 yesterday, actually.
Really?
Oh shit!
Happy belated,
dog. Cheers to that, baby.
Thank you. While I was at war all day.
Oh, I know, right?
Right. Gotta love it. But you know what? It really showed me that I'm doing something right. Because you're withholding, right, all the other documents, right, that shows that everything that's been done, right, has been to the benefit of everybody else and not ever for a financial gain.
Ultimately, if you don't have haters, then you're not doing
anything right.
You ain't doing nothing right.
Yeah.
Oh, they brought up every one of my committees, right? Every board I'm a part of, right? They were calling us big name people, right? And these are just allegations and accusations. Right?
That's what it always is until proven.
I love it when you send it to us anonymously, but you know it's bullshit, and we're not even afraid because we know who you are. And if you had something, because if we were doing something, you just go to the AG's office.
So how do you combat that then?
How do I?
How would you?
Well, I'm coming on here just to let everybody know that I already know.
Move it closer.
Yeah.
Like, turn it. Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry.
Coming on here, one thing. I mean, I think you know me long enough. I play the rules. You know, politics is not never clean.
So it's definitely
Right.
never clean.
I mean, shit.
I mean,
yeah.
Especially when the politics coincide with oversight. You know what I'm saying? Decision makers. You know, the powers that be, and
Not just the state level, but also the federal level.
I mean, the most corrupt corporation in the entire world
Is the U.S. government.
I would say the government of every single government out
Yeah.
there. They're all the most corrupt corporation in the entire world. Each one of them for each country. I don't give a shit what country it is.
Right.
They're corrupt, man.
Regardless of side, also, somehow they continue to convince the citizens of their country to vote for them.
Right.
Which blows my mind, bro.
It's kind of, you know.
And that's kind of why I like what Trump's doing with the transparency, saying, hey, this is where your money went. This
Right.
is where your money went. This is where your money went. To fucking DI studies and ferrets in ferrets in Peru. Why are we doing that?
I know. I
This shit is ridiculous, bro.
I know. I love that he did that because I love forensic accounting and going after those that I have to audit in an official standing because we know that they're doing things wrong, right? Everything that impacts licensed professionals, okay? All these people that we hired to protect us and guide us and all this and that, even the politicians, right? Everything's connected. But the problem with the system is that the checks and balances are not always being done to where they need to be, and the oversight hasn't been there. You know what I'm saying?
It's crazy that they can't audit any government, any government buildings or anything like that. So basically, the government's been able to do whatever they fucking wanted.
So the government, so the government has oversight over its citizens.
Yeah, over
but
citizens.
Who's got oversight over the government?
Right.
No one.
Well,
And then who would have oversight of the oversight over the government? So
I
then-
know on the state level,
Yeah.
right? I can tell you guys like this. On the state level, because I'm on the building committee for the state, right? And we had a meeting last week, okay? While at the same time I was at the Fair Housing Symposium, right?
That was in Tampa?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So the meeting goes over our Tallahassee buildings and our Orlando buildings, okay, right? And the budget, so on and so forth. The one thing that I like on the state level, and this is things that we've implemented, we're going over the budget, right? We know where it's going to. Remember, buildings need maintenance, okay? You know how this stuff works, right?
Yeah.
You put out bids, this and that, right? The budget's public.
But painting a 1,500
Right.
square foot interior doesn't cost $40,000.
There you go. And that is the good thing now with this, right? Because
When you say this, are you talking about Doge?
no, I'm talking state level. You know what I'm saying?
Ron DeSantis
Doge-
already says he's going to have a Doge in Florida.
He'll probably make something up like that, right? And there's a lot of committees on the state, you know what I'm saying?
You know what you are
oversight,
describing is Doge, though, right?
basically. Yeah.
Not
on the
basically,
state level.
exactly.
It is. Yeah, I know.
Why can't you say the word, Manny?
because that's a federal department.
I'm just,
You know, and I don't want to confuse, let's say, the viewers per se, right?
Yeah.
On
So what you're
the state
asking
level.
for is a state level Doge. God,
we
this is so hard.
we
for you
already
to
have
say.
no. We have that, and that's kind of what I'm touching on. You know, of what we're seeing in the evolving of the building committee for the state per se. Okay, we went over the past years, and then we went over the next projected 4 years. Okay, right, and I raised the question during the meeting, right? If we have companies and we disclose and we can undercut who's already been approved, right? Is that acceptable?
Is it?
Right? There wasn't an issue with that because we're disclosing everything, right? And that we're actually, and on top of that, our scope of work and, you know, a new door is not going to cost $20,000.
No, it's not.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to cost whatever it needs
You
to
know,
cost.
I love it. You ever see the movie Independence Day?
Mm-hmm.
Where they get to Area 51 and the president says, how do we fund all this? And then the the guy's dad goes, well, you don't really think we pay $20,000 for a hammer, do you?
Right.
I mean,
it's true.
It's true.
Listen, but before I got, right, and I did this strategically, before I got back into real estate full time and started covering, and I started getting into, what you naturally progress into, building, remodeling, investing, and then, go large, lending, so on and so forth, right? The one thing I could tell you is this, right, is the money's being spent better, right? We are actually trying to make a fucking difference, okay? And that is the one thing I could say that at least Florida has going on. Is it too little, too late? Now that is a big question, because here's the thing: on that same token, we just made the top 10 in homelessness, food insecurity. Well, housing insecurity, right? And food insecurity. We made the top 10
Florida
cities, yes,
or Tampa,
right, in the entire country.
I don't really see a lot of homeless people walking around.
You guys don't, because it's too fucking hot. So they're on their, bridges, or even better yet. Let me tell you.
Who was the source on that, by the way?
Who's the source?
Yeah, top 10 and food insecurity.
The news.
The news. Oh, you could trust
and the government audit.
You could trust them.
Well,
and it would make sense, wouldn't it? Because we are the third largest state in the United States of America in terms of population.
And we grew too fast. And a lot of people
Too many people moved here too fast.
We brought in a lot of money from other states that went further here, right? But the issue with that, right, on that same token, we got a break?
No.
We got like 2 minutes, right?
Okay. The problem with that is that now those same fucking dumb assholes didn't know what they were doing, and now again they're all in foreclosure. Foreclosure isn't the
pre-foreclosure, right?
We could call it that. Yeah. Okay. Right. When you get served lis pendens, right, basically, essentially, yeah, you're in pre-foreclosure because being foreclosed on would then, yeah. Okay. But loss mitigation is a technical term if we're gonna, cover all that, because you can be foreclosed on by anybody. You know what I'm saying? When you see one homesteaded properties in Hillsborough County is only 32%.
Yeah, I saw that number and it was wild,
right,
bro.
Huh?
That number blew me away, because that means
it's true.
68,
because all
68%
are investor owned.
That's wild to me, man.
So that could be anybody, any company. It could be a bank, and you wouldn't even know it.
But it could be a second home for somebody, right? Like a second home.
It could.
It could be, but you would see that, right, in the types of mortgages. You know what I'm saying? And if it was a second home, right, it would be a homesteaded here in Florida.
Yeah.
Technically. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because if there are other houses, say up north, then different state, different rules.
When we get back with Happy Hour Holidays, we'll continue with Manny Manna and talking real estate. We freaking love this. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and reach out to us with any questions about any of the guests that we have on. Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Yeah,
Yo, dog. Welcome back to Happy Hour Holidays.
Let's start that over.
All right. Welcome back to Happy Hour Holidays.
Oh, God, this guy.
No, welcome back to Happy Hour Holidays. I'm your host every single week, Manny Fresh. We got Manny Manna in the house talking about real estate, one of my favorite topics. Manny, so as far
we got Sean Fabre also in the studio today.
The resume's here. I wrote a book. I'm an engineer. I'm a co-sponsor for White Claw.
I wish.
Because I drink so many of them per day.
Come on, White Claw. Still waiting on that honorary sponsorship.
My biggest
I do want to give a shout out to Brightling. Give me a
call.
I love your guys' products. It would go good with our branding.
And Louis Vuitton too, you know.
Yes,
Louis,
absolutely.
if you want to sponsor us, let's go.
We got the stuff in the car. I use your briefcases and backpacks for my day to day. Thank you.
Louis Gooey, let's go. Hey, so my biggest thing, Manny, I wanted your opinion on was, do you think these interest rates are going to go up or down? Like, where do you think they're going in the next 12 to 18 months? Because that's my biggest thing with the state of the market when it comes to the affordability I mean,
Right.
one of the big issues is the interest rate. I mean,
It
you
is.
think about
It is.
back before
Interest rate's going to dictate a lot.
Yeah, it is.
And
I mean, this is a buyer's market. Would you agree?
Yes, I would actually.
Because there's probably more price reductions than we've ever seen, and probably before.
Hasn't the interest rate consistently fallen since January?
No, I mean we made it to a 6-month low, and then
Here's
it
the
just
thing:
kept
whatever the
trickling up and
Fed
up.
does,
6-month
right?
low. Since
All the lenders have
president
done
January.
the opposite. They've actually raised the rates.
Yeah.
The only ones that are able to offer subprime are credit unions and banks.
Strictly to them. So if you're a lender, you're not getting those.
So are you saying get a mortgage from a bank or a credit union?
I'm not saying that. What I will say is this, right? If you have the good enough representation, and I always tell
By
people,
representation, do you
right,
mean a realtor or a lender?
yes, because as a realtor, okay, and forget every other thing that every other license degree, whatever, okay. As a realtor, I am going to recommend, matching a client that's looking to buy a house with the lender or, with a mortgage, loan originator, right? And a lender is like matchmaking. You know what I'm saying? Not all of them are going to work, how that client may need to be worked. Some need to be hands-on. I am a big advocate of if I'm being hired and especially when I'm referring out to educate the clients. Now, because if I leave you ignorant in the process, what am I doing?
Not your job.
Exactly. Which everybody else does because, when you can't get someone else to sign a BBA to pay you for your time.
What's a BBA?
A buyer broker agreement.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and most don't. They're still relying on the sellers getting paid, from the seller. But again, this is where I'm always on my social media whenever I'm doing, any kind of live or anything formative. Ask the questions. I'm not asking people to give me your business at all. I'll never solicit that. I don't pay for leads. I don't pay for nothing. I want everything organically. Because if I'm not getting it, I'm not doing something right.
Do you believe, Manny, that people or realtors should still, if you're a buyer's agent, you should be getting paid by your buyer? Or do you think that still the seller should be paying for the buyer? Because of this whole thing with NAR and everything. Right. Now everybody's uncertain. Hey, really, you're supposed to be getting paid by your buyer.
Here's what I think, right? I'm not going to answer one way or the other on that. Yeah. And because I'm going to answer this way, right? When I list a property, okay, I leave an option, okay? And it's always an option, okay? Let me take that back. This is always a tricky subject.
I think the seller.
So let me go from the buyer side, okay? I've always operated because this is how I was trained, okay? Right, from one of the biggest name brokers under Keller, right? And big shout out to Murray Coleman. Respect you, love you, man. You're the best. You should always have a buyer broker's agreement in place, right, for your commission, regardless of what happens. You know what I'm saying? Because you should be protected, along with your client.
So then, what is that? What's the verbiage that's in there? Does it say, "Hey, if I get you this house now, you have to pay me"?
It's basically.
So then now
the verbiage is basically you're paying.
Let's say they have $50,000 as a down payment. Mm-hmm. Now their down payment, and you guys agree on like $2,500. It's going to be $52,500 from the buyer, and that's going to be dispensed at closing, where the seller no longer has to pay the buyer's agent
for compensation.
For compensation. Doesn't that seem a little unfair to the buyer who's already putting down a shit ton of money, and the seller doesn't really feel it because
do they?
Well,
they do feel it.
Some may.
Net. If you're selling a house, I'm looking at that net number all the time.
There's a reason why closing costs on the FAR bar, right, when they drafted that originally, were split 50-50. You know what I'm saying?
Between the title company and
no, between the seller and the buyer. You know what I'm saying? Now compensation, totally different story, right? Let's say you got someone who's been in the house, 20 years, and then and they bought it for $110,000. Now it's worth $800,000. You'll see that in Tampa a million times over, right? Yeah. Now, is it too much to ask for them to pay?
I don't think it is.
I don't think so. Now, when you're making that kind of money, but also it is something that it is your money.
It is. I mean,
so right.
Because if you're financing $10,000, you're at $100 extra for financing.
Right. Here's the also thing too. You can negotiate as a listing agent and the seller compensation, even during the transaction. If the buyer's agent isn't doing their job and I'm doing 100% of it, right? What the fuck are you doing?
What does a buyer's agent really have to do, though?
Exactly. What are you doing? Opening a door and acting like Vanna White?
Well, not just one door.
You know what I'm saying?
Not just one door, though.
A couple.
A couple.
Well, depending on how big
but then there's also that argument. You're like, okay, well, you only took the buyer to my house once,
right?
And they decided to so that's technically only 1 hour out of your time at my property. So there's no reason I should pay you, even though you showed them 15 other properties.
I'll tell you this. Look, when I first started off, every once in a while I would get asked 3%. What am I paying? What am I paying for? This is what you're paying for. Okay. You're paying for the fact that exactly. That's how I got my reputation.
You notice he keeps doing this, right? And he's classic move, dude. He's classic.
So the value of your house, easy.
He keeps doing it for the camera too. He's switching. Hey, yo, look.
So compensation, and you know what? Let's even take the percentages and the numbers actually out the board. Let's just say compensation period. Okay, you're getting essentially a shield. Okay. Statute of limitations on the sale is 5 years. Okay. Now, I explained in the past too, there's exceptions. Probate, extends it out to 20 years. Okay. Estate, other kinds of law has it at 10-year statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations for what?
Anything that could go wrong. Okay. Right. Let's say you bought a house and then
a
year later they lied about the WDO. You know what I'm saying? They're fucking responsible for that shit. You don't think I'd sue for that shit.
What's WDO?
We're destroying termites.
Wow.
Which is a big issue, which is why it's even written in the FAR bar, right, for disclosure. But people will lie about that shit all the time. I caught that when I was buying my house recently.
Shouldn't the inspector catch that, though?
Huh?
Shouldn't the inspector catch that, though?
Absolutely, and mine does. He caught it, and that's how I was able to call them out on it. Because they fucking lied on the seller disclosure. And this is me buying for myself.
Definitely, those sellers' disclosures. Nobody's gonna be like, "Hey, there's a little bit of a small leak that I don't know."
No, they have to.
Yeah, they do.
Anything affecting
prove they knew about
affecting the property, right, or any known issue affecting the property value. Now you've committed fraud, non-disclosure. You know what I'm saying, right?
But it's not
termites,
what's true. It's what you can prove, right?
Anything leakage, right? It's going to be easily proven in fucking home inspection.
Yeah, but I'm saying if the home inspector does not catch that, ultimately it should
and that's where it comes down to skill
from the inspector.
Let's get into that. I want to get in. Okay, let's talk about that. Right, I read 1 million home inspections all the time. Okay, right, every fucking day. Right, as a listing agent or even just as the private equity firm that owns a bunch of properties. Okay, and manages them, and then whatever else. Okay. I look at these and I laugh sometimes because they're fucking amateur as fuck. I've had the same person after I filed, must have fired probably a dozen prior, right? The same one for the last 5 years. Kyle Horton, right? He's the owner of HDMK Inspections.
He's the good one, right?
Me and him set a legal precedent, right, a couple of years ago, right, when we challenged a big builder. We pushed back a close in a whole fucking month. And we racked up 1.5%, right? Default every day we delayed it. Okay. But he's that good and we trust each other that much because we've been working together and we beat them. You know what I'm saying? We made them move a fucking toilet because it wasn't up to code on the second floor because it was 3 inches closer to the wall and the people that were buying the house, the husband's fucking 6'9". You know what I'm saying? Are you going to take a shit when you're fucking can't even get, you know what I mean? No, that doesn't work for me. Do your fucking job, right? While every other agent that same year got sued because If you don't know how to do your fucking job, right? This is where it comes down to skill again, right? You don't know how to do your job. You don't know how to work a builder's contract. Builders dictate their own contracts, and they rig them for a fucking reason.
Definitely.
DR and Lennar are the worst because they'll fucking, and then the one I'm talking about, you know, that I'm referencing, and I'm not going to put their name out there, right? DR and Lennar, this is common knowledge, right? They'll close on a fucking house if it's incomplete.
Oh, yeah.
You know
Oh, they always do that. They'll go, oh,
right.
no, we'll come back and fix it, you
Right.
know? And it's just like, bro, they're the biggest criminals now. These large builders,
Yes.
I mean, they're literally
Right.
being able to make your own contract.
Right.
They should abide by some rules.
They should
Don't
because
they have to
their
abide by-
lawyers
No,
will
they don't
write.
have laws. They don't have to do the FAR bar, right? They,
No.
they have their own.
No, they can structure.
Yeah,
their own.
which is
Yep.
criminal.
But they
It's
still,
criminal.
but they still have to abide by Florida laws.
They have
and
oh
building codes.
Yeah.
exactly.
and
And
permits.
that's why they have the 1-year warranty and
but
all
they
this
can-
other bullshit.
But they can
here's
do
the thing.
whatever they want outside of Florida law to benefit them
You
over
can-
who's purchasing it.
You could, dude, even with that, right? You can fuck with that all day long. And I seen them, right? That's, again, this is where it comes down to skill. I don't let their contract dictate me. You know what I do?
because you could change that contract.
I can manipulate the fuck out of
Yeah.
it, right?
It's not set in stone.
You know
How
what? Let me
bad
take
you-
that word, right? Not manipulate it, but use their contract against them, okay? Most agents will never fucking ask their client, their home buyer, of a new construction for a home inspection, right? I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to find everything.
Because
that
what
got
they
wrong.
do is they just use their own inspectors and they go, oh, yeah, this is good. You know?
Right.
We already paid
As long as they got the NOC, okay, right?
What's
from-
the NLC?
Notice of commencement.
Yeah, you use a shit ton of acronyms. I'm not a realtor, bro.
But that's the point. I want you to ask the question so then the audience learns.
There you go.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
like that.
Because then they're getting educated.
Yeah.
Again, right? Another thing too. The same agent, new constructions, right? Hypothetically, ask your fucking agent, do you have E&O? Show me. You know, the person, right, that's anonymous right now.
They all have to have E&O under their brokerage.
Nope. Only the broker has to.
Right. And then
Not the agents.
And then the agent is under the brokerage, so the broker is ultimately responsible.
They're responsible, but they don't have to give them E&O. That's where all these agents just don't even understand it because
I thought the brokerage, they do not provide coverage of E&O,
Nope.
then the agent isn't covered and the broker's not doing his job if he didn't notify the
he doesn't
agent.
have to. We are not an E&O state. That's why.
Really?
Yep. We are not, by law, we are not required to carry E&O.
Did you know that?
Only the broker.
I didn't know.
And that's only on because
yeah, but
that's
the broker has to cover the agent.
nope. The agent, the broker has to cover himself. The agents are contractors.
Oh shit, you're right.
So it all
So
goes back
so
to
if my agent fucks up, they're
Goes
not going
back-
after them. They're
They're
coming to
going at
me.
me, yeah.
I'm getting fucking sued. What the fuck are they going to sue them?
Mm-hmm.
They don't got shit.
So I mean, ultimately, that comes down to the broker's due diligence because they're getting sued either way.
They're going to get, yeah, that's built into the, with it. They don't give
And
a
it
shit.
also depends on the
That-
contract that's been signed between the brokerage and the realtor.
No. Trust me.
We're gonna have to look into
Look,
that one.
Look, you don't need to look into the broker side and none of that.
I'm gonna. Look
All you got to
into
do
it.
is pull the statutes because it doesn't matter. Only the broker has to cover it, right? And that's for liability.
That seems like negligence from the broker side, in my opinion.
It's not. They're private contractors. Every
Like a
agent is a 1099, right?
So ultimately,
The
you're
broker's
all-
only responsible for negligence, okay,
Errors
and
omissions.
or breaking laws, okay. E&O, all it is just insurance,
Yeah.
okay. Ultimately, right, when you're a 1099, you're your own business,
Yep.
okay. That's their choice not to carry it or not. I carry it in every fucking capacity.
Who gets paid typically, the agent or the broker?
For what?
Through the title company.
The
Yeah,
broker
broker.
we will.
Well, there
Unless you
you
do
go.
a DA and then you can.
Well,
Yeah,
there you go.
unless the DA, yeah, my DAs, all my agents, I always get paid.
So if the title company always cuts the broker a check, ultimately the person responsible would be the person receiving the check from the title company.
And title isn't part of real estate.
But
law
they're the ones cutting
in
the
this aspect
last
of it.
check, and then the broker's the one cutting it to the agent.
E&O is for
Errors and
Profession-
omission,
is-
I understand that.
is for licensed professionals.
God, I can't believe
for
that's
liability
true,
reasons.
That sounds so stupid.
Right? For services, representation, law, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Anything and everything. There's even auto in your E&O. So if you're an agent and you're showing a house, covers that. Now, would you ever have anybody in your fucking car? Absolutely not. I would never do a showing with a client in my car. You get into an accident,
you're responsible.
Yep. And
you're driving, so
your E&O's not even going to cover it either.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's an auto accident.
Yep. Because now you're going to be civilly sued.
Yeah.
Can't sue them professionally. Because they shouldn't be in your car to begin with.
What if you're in their car? They get into an accident. You can sue them. I got my commission, bitch.
Right?
You didn't buy nothing.
Oh,
See, that's the thing, right? And nobody even knows this shit, man. When I tell people, dude, you're being represented, okay, right? You want someone to represent your house that's worth fucking $1 million, okay, right? And they don't have any insurance? I'd be scared shitless, to be honest with you. Would you drive in, if you owned a Rolls Royce, Lamborghini, fucking shit, any car, would you be driving around with no insurance on down I-4?
I mean, we know somebody that owned a BMW that did that after he paid it off and he totaled it.
Hey, there's an asshole, dumbass born every minute, man. You know what I'm saying?
Wouldn't call him a dumbass, but you know.
I mean, you know, it's the older I've gotten, the more protective I've become over people I do business with, clients, and myself. You know what I'm saying? Because, dude, when people are hurting financially, they will absolutely disregard their own principles and morals.
That happened.
When you're fucking hungry, and when you're, dude,
I can
for example,
agree with that.
When right now, people are so. The majority of everybody are non-confrontational people. Okay, that is actually a very high statistic. Okay,
they're
right?
very confrontational on this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it's all anonymous, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about the financial side, right? When they start falling behind, right, they won't even contact their creditors, right? Nothing. Why?
Because they don't want confrontation.
Right, exactly. You're too afraid to ask for something? Because honestly, really and truly, if you call them and you tell them you have financial problems,
they'll work with
they're
you.
gonna fucking work with you.
Yeah.
Because you know how much more expensive, because I'm a lender. I'm also registered as a creditor too. Okay, because I'll issue out lines of credit. You know what I mean? So like,
damn, I got a question for you then. Credit Karma is complete garbage.
Absolutely.
FICO scores are the only thing lenders look at.
Mm-hmm.
And FICO scores are broken up into 3 different categories: auto, mortgage, and credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those 3 have TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And those are the only FICO scores lenders lend on, right?
Mm-hmm.
No lender looks at Credit Karma and says, that's your credit score.
No.
No, when they pull your
Please clarify that,
Yeah.
like, hard to the listeners, because apparently they think if they look at Credit Karma, it can't deviate by like 50, 60, 70 points.
So you could go look up last year, right? Credit Karma had, I think, 2 class action lawsuits, right, for reporting much lower credit scores, right?
Or even much higher.
Right. No. Because there was a reason, right? Just like,
Mine
okay,
are way higher than my
when you
FICO
go on
scores.
Credit Karma, right? And you see
only
the
gives you
odds,
2.
for approval, and then
Yeah.
if they don't win, they pay you $50. And it's fucking true, right?
Oh, that's why
No,
I got
it really
right
is.
there.
So that's why they're always under.
Mine
right?
are over.
And then, of course, because they're getting kickbacks from these shitty ass fucking bank, credit cards that you never even heard of in a million years. Interest rate with 35%. They're going to charge you fucking money every month just because you got a shitty credit score.
Or they're trying to get you to line up with personal loans that, hey, you could get a
That too.
$50,000 personal
That too.
loan.
Because
And then
they're
you look at
low-
the interest rate, it says $25.99.
because they're purposely lowering your shit. And that's why they end up getting sued. Because look, right, you could do that, but it's only so long, right? Because you can't, dude, in this day and age, okay, right, it is very hard to hide shit.
Yeah,
That's why I preach transparency.
unless you're
That's
like
why,
Epstein,
like all these agents and everything else. Why do you guys try to hide shit? Don't. Just be fucking transparent. But this shit translates to fucking everything, man. You know what I'm saying?
I 1,000% agree. And that's one thing that,
You know.
and I want to shout out this app They're not paying us. I just want to shout them out. My FICO. If you download the My FICO, I think it's like $45 a month. All those FICO scores, those FICO scores between auto, mortgage, and credit card, and then there's another tab that says other. You get your true on the date FICO score where you're actually at. And I know you said lower, but like mine is 50% higher on Credit Karma than it is on my FICO. That's why I don't trust Credit Karma at all.
You know how you really fix everything, right? Like Experian, right? They're by themselves, right? You know what I'm saying? With them, I connected all my bank accounts.
Yeah, you do your Experian Boost.
Right. So once you start connecting your assets,
and then it sees that
you will see your credit score change in real time.
Yeah.
No way.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, when we get back, for somebody who talks about fiscal responsibility, he lives in his car. But anyways, when we get back with Happy Hour Holidays, we'll continue with this.
I actually live in Manny's car.
For free. Welcome back to Happy Hour Holidays. We were talking about real estate, but we were talking about something else that we wanted to
credit scores, but we already talked.
Affordable housing.
Yeah.
We're talking about a lot of stuff that's going on in the county right now.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that's going on in Florida. I mean, our largest demographic is going to be closer to home anyways, where we're at. And, and shit, why not talk about all the things that are affecting us? I mean, where else have you seen some of the richest people and then some of the poorest people in one of the richest growing cities in the fucking country, right? But then still being the top 10 for homelessness and food insecurity. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm really trying to understand.
But, I mean, don't you feel like a lot of the big cities, since there's so much population, that there's bound to be, food insecurity?
Oh, of course.
Can we define food insecurity real quick?
Food insecurity means that you do not have a guaranteed meal a day. None.
That's interesting. What do you attribute that to? Because I already know what I think you want to say, but go for it.
I mean, it's a combination of a lot of things. Property taxes, inflation, groceries are expensive as fuck.
Do you think property taxes should be abolished?
Property taxes abolished?
I mean, property taxes.
Huh?
You think property taxes should be abolished?
No.
There's
put an age limit on it. What about people that retire? There's no reason why they should continue to be paying.
Or somebody who has paid off their house. Like let's say
Yeah.
if you still have a mortgage on it, fine, you pay your property taxes.
Right.
But let's say you don't have a mortgage on it. I mean, should you still be paying property taxes?
I mean, what you're paying? You're paying an HOA. You're paying
now we're
CDB.
catering to the to the 1%.
No, because it could be somebody who's lived in their house for 20 or 30 years and they paid it off, or 15 years they worked, they busted their ass and paid their mortgage off.
But those people right now, because they've been in there, never been sold, it says, right?
Yeah.
So they're already
paying.
They're already paying nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Not really.
The problem is when you come in, right?
Pay cash on it, then
no fuck the house next door. Look, for example, okay, right?
Microphone's there.
Been remodeled, okay, and then sold, okay, turned into a rental. So now no homestead, no discounted, right? Now they get tired of it, and right, so they liquidate the portfolio and then sell the thing, right? So they're paying now $7,000 a fucking year in property taxes, while your neighbor who's been in the house 25 years is only
so then how about
$1,000.
This? How about this then?
That should get fixed. I don't think that's fair.
What about paid off homesteaded houses then?
Paid off homesteaded.
Well, it's their primary residence, so why are they still paying property taxes? And this is the way I see it. At least for the ones that retire and their house is paid off, there's no reason for them to still be paying property taxes. I understand that the property taxes cover infrastructure, public schools, things of that nature. But at the same time, why are we paying the government to when you already have the house, you own the house? Why are we paying them? And then you're like, okay, well, if it's paid off, they're already paying nothing in or property taxes.
Right.
Let's say their property taxes is $12,000 a year. Now they're paying $1,000 a month for that house. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense whatsoever. And then people say, okay, how are you going to fund all this if you eliminate property taxes?
You can't.
Well, actually, you can. All right. And then how there is
Trust me.
They're gonna start taxing other industries. They're gonna start taxing gas. They're gonna start taxing cigarettes.
No,
they're gonna start taxing food. They're
Google
gonna start taxing
right now how much a gallon of gas and tax goes to it. It'll shock you.
How much?
Between 60-70% of what you pay for gas goes to the U.S. government in tax.
And you're telling me that they got to tax our properties too?
Think for gasoline, that is one of the biggest crooked fucking taxes I've ever fucking seen. Look it up.
You don't actually see the gas tax on the itemized receipt.
You're doing because all you're paying. Everyone is only knows about and cares about what they pay per gallon and what's on the fucking sign.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody knows that the majority of what they pay per gallon is actually fucking tax.
Yeah. Did you see what Amazon's doing now? They're putting the tariff amount.
How much it's the tariff?
eBay's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So anything coming from shit. I was looking at a watch the other day. You know what I'm saying? Coming from fucking Canada. And so, god damn. You know what I'm saying? I was looking at some car parts, right? From China. Shit. It was like $1,000 and then you're charging me $350 in just the tariff.
So my question is, Amazon basically is doing that as a political motive. And my question is, when it was inflationary, how come they didn't put a little sign to the top that said, hey, due to inflation, you're paying this much extra on everything you buy as well?
Because the U.S. government is their obligation to disclose that information. Right. Now with the tariff thing,
the tariffs
they're all disclosing
as well. So
I don't think a corporation should pay the tariff fees. You know what I'm saying? I was a VP of a security manufacturing company, right? And the only thing that we brought in, right, were these little chips, right, from Taiwan, right? And because of the tariffs, right? Do you know how expensive it went? And they're just little chips.
So you missed out on the news where now Apple decided to move their semiconductor chip factory from China to India. Where India negotiated a 0% tariff. So the tariffs are working. I think you're looking a little bit too hard into it, and mainly because of the way the stock market is performing. Because the stock market is speculation. It's all speculation. When people see tariffs, what they're doing is out of fear, they're devaluing a company, not actually looking at what the company will be earning now that it's out of China.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If the company's U.S.
And this is wild to me. You guys ever seen earning calls? Mm-hmm. The company will show that in the quarter, they had a 20% increase in profit, and their stock will still drop. You really can't dictate the economy based on what the stock market does. It's a good indicator.
I don't even give a shit about the stock market anymore. Just because there's so many extra variables at play, right? That I don't even think, to be honest with you, a lot of the fucking stockbrokers there, unless you got a fucking Warren MBA, right? You know what I'm saying? Or shit, man. You know, really have an understanding of just the bigger picture. Macroeconomics, man. Literally. Worldwide. International economics. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? Everything is intertwined, right? Now, let's go back to the tariff thing, but from a different angle. Now, how long have we been defending Taiwan from China?
For a long time.
Right. But all of a sudden, they just made a three-way fucking deal, right? With Japan in them. Taiwan, China, and Japan. Well, we still got our fucking destroyers parked outside of Taiwan because China was trying to fucking conquer them. You know why?
What was the deal?
The deal?
Yeah, you said a three-way deal.
There was a three-way deal for them, right, to where they unilaterally would not, I guess, tax each other and then would stand together
against the United States.
Correct.
So, I mean, what that's showing is not free trade. What that's showing is a conspiracy globally to go against the United States, which has already had tariffs imposed on us for the last...
from the Trump administration.
Since 1913. No, since 1913,
The Trump administration started the first tariffs, right? That got us to where we are now.
Are you out of your fucking
He's
mind,
never
bro?
lifted them.
During the Biden administration, okay, we were tariffed by Canada.
Taxed.
No, a tariff. We were tariffed by Canada on our butter 300%. When we say, hey, if you import butter from us,
Those are
now we're
products.
going to tariff you 300%. All of a sudden, everybody freaks the fuck out. So what you're telling me is we're willing to pay a 300% tariff, but Canada can't pay a 300% tariff? This is what you call reciprocal tariffs. Everybody that's against it now sees, oh, well, you know, since we import so much, we're going to have to start paying more. No, the whole basis of it is to start manufacturing within the United States. And if we're getting a 300% tariff on butter, you're telling me we can't produce that same butter for less than what we pay?
That's not the point.
Well, I think that is the point that we're trying to get across in this
Everyone
administration.
there's always a motive to everything. Everything that you're going to see politically motivated, which is, you want to talk about the stock market? We'll talk about commodities because that's the only thing that fucking matters.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? If we're really going to talk about the economy,
What
you know
commodity?
what I'm saying?
Butter's a commodity.
Any commodity, all of them.
Butter's a commodity.
Food, minerals, fuel, okay, gold, silver, the shit that would stand up if the fucking world crashed. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Things that make the world go round.
I don't know if gold and silver would.
No.
I think more so food would.
Those are just set because that would be a monetary.
No.
If the
Which
dollar
you
and
can take
everything,
to any country in the
fell.
world.
You know what I'm saying? We still operate on the gold and fucking silver fucking. You know what I'm saying?
No, we don't. Not the standard.
Not anymore.
No.
We actually just removed ourselves from that. Actually, it was a whole fucking deal.
It was like 1925.
Yeah, it was a big UN deal because they
Nixon.
didn't need to do it anymore.
Nixon took us off.
1970, yeah.
No.
Nixon-
No.
didn't
They
Nixon
finalized it just recently.
No,
Yes.
absolutely.
I thought Nixon took us off the gold standard.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't been backed by gold
No.
in forever.
Different
bro.
law. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they're
Yeah, you're going to have to clarify that.
credit line, right, for your country, credit rating, okay, was still dictated by gold. Remember,
Even though the
valuation of the country, right,
since
it
1970.
would be dictating how much, right, they actually have. Okay. All right. Let's transfer it over to real estate. Okay. Right. Investor level. Right. If you're going to use OPM, what do you need to have? Reserves. Right.
A project manager?
No.
Other people's money.
OPM.
Oh, OPM.
Yeah.
OPM. Oh.
You need to have reserves and capital in a certain amount. You know what I'm saying? To keep getting funded. Think of it as like that. You know what I mean? But bigger picture, what I really don't is that this is all political. Okay?
I don't think it's
Why
all
have we been
political.
defending fucking Taiwan and then we're going to allow Taiwan, right, to join a unilateral, right, tariff, increase on us? Make that make sense? How's that fair?
I thought I already made it make sense.
But how's that fair?
They moved it to India. It's not fucking fair.
No. Fuck the company. The companies are a different issue.
No, they're not. Because if you're talking about the economy and you're talking about the stock market, you're talking about companies on the S&P 500 that are American that are performing these kinds of trades or this kind of manufacturing and importing outside of the United States of America. So Taiwan, China, Japan know that they can produce it cheaper. Hey, where are you going to go? We're going to impose a higher tax on you. We don't give a shit that you're defending us from China. Japan, we don't give a shit that you're defending us from North Korea.
Yeah.
We don't give a shit that you're defending the South China Sea from China. We're still going to do that for you. How does it make sense? Because of the greed of those economies, and they have become accustomed
There we go.
to their lack or to the lack of pushback from the American government due to weak leadership in the executive branch. And now that you have someone strong arming them, they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do it. And then they go, okay, no problem. We'll go somewhere else. And then they'll negotiate with India. India will say, hey, we'll drop our tariffs down to zero and make it reciprocal with what you guys will have on us. They make a deal. They get a manufacturing plant over there. They start creating new jobs. We get them for as cheap, if not slightly higher. And the consumer doesn't really see a big deal because it's going to be raised by a couple cents. And then you solve the issue. And that's what the whole tariff battle is about, is saying, okay, well, if you want to tariff us, we're going to move it out of your country. You're going to lose millions of jobs, China. And now all of a sudden, you're going to have these containers at your port of of exit where they're not being shipped out because now these companies decided to cancel those purchase orders and you're fucked. Go sell them somewhere else to a different country. It's happening in China. Yes, they are, bro. Look at the videos.
They released the financials, right? A couple whistleblowers, right? And then
financials of who?
The country. They're not going
to
hurt off of us. Do you know how much money?
If a manufacturing plant,
for example, right? Tesla said, right, and this motherfucker's in the government, right? He's got a fucking cabinet seat, right? That he was going to move all of his companies over to the U.S.
Who? Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk.
Yeah, he announced that he was going to move all his company, all the manufacturing plants over here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then decided not to afterwards because you know how much it was going to fucking cost. Even then, with the government giving him all these subsidies,
You know who gave
they were going to subsidize everything.
Right? You know who gave him those subsidies, right?
Course.
The previous administration, not this current one.
He
and it was in 2023
prior, right?
But so you can't bring him
he's
up.
A cabinet member, right?
And do you know where the largest lithium mine is?
Where?
In China.
Mm-hmm.
So China's got them by the balls because you can't produce or you can't mine lithium in America because we don't have those kind of deposits.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's one of the minerals we lack. Why do you think Trump was trying to get that raw mineral deal with Ukraine, saying, "Yo, end the war, pay us back. We want the rights to the minerals for." I think it was like.
We'll get that.
I don't think so.
I think we
I don't think that war's ever gonna end.
I think it will.
It's gonna be like Iraq, Afghanistan war, bro. They're just there to be there.
I think putting them will always be the same way, right? But Ukraine. Look how much damage they've done to this massive fucking country. You know what I'm saying?
Is that why in Ukraine they're wrangling up people that are military aged and dragging them into vans?
I heard that. That's crazy.
There's no hearing about it. There's videos out there of them actually doing it.
Oh, I seen it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't agree with any of it.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you see any
But is it just as bad as our draft? It's just as bad as when we had the draft. You know what I'm saying?
But what I'm saying is,
because we sent our best and brightest out.
Do you see those videos coming out of Russia? No, you don't see those videos coming out.
Of course not, because they're not going to get released. They're not going to allow them to get released.
I mean, they do have the internet.
And just like China, they can block it from the rest of the world.
There's ways.
Of course, there's always ways. There's
Proxies,
a fucking dark net.
Proxies.
Yeah, of course. But everything has a track. You know what I'm saying? Why do you think Russia only allows the hackers that work for them to hack?
Because they're probably the best hackers.
Undoubtedly.
And I don't know if this is pure coincidence, but your shirt is Ukrainian colors. Then again, so's the Happy Hour Holidaze logo.
Right. I think, man, we're gonna see a lot of changes, man, in the coming months, and especially in the coming couple of years.
It's only been 4 months.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, look at government agencies. I mean, even still.
Specifically,
I have a lot of elderly clients, okay, that are retirees, and they very comfortable, and they want reassured of that their money is. Let's just say, yeah.
From what government agency?
No, just period. Just from, because this is their retirement money.
Are you talking about like 401k, Social Security?
All of it, right? Because they'll move it into, I got a couple different investment vessels, you know what I'm saying? But I operate at 100%, you know what I'm saying? Coverage. But we don't need to get into that. I'm just not here for that. The point is what I hear from them, okay, right? A lot of those clients, right, huge Trump supporters, you know what I'm saying? And I always like to ask, right, what is your opinion of Trump now? Because I have no opinion one way or the other. Well, let me take that back. I do, but they're all educational opinions.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So we're not, I don't want, not for. They all said the same thing, right, which is true. He has taken away every single thing that his core voter, right, needed.
What was that?
He's gutted all the fucking benefits, right?
Like what?
They've been gutting the VA.
No,
okay.
They've
federal government, right? Federal government funding, right, for benefits for disabled people. A lot of programs. I can run off the list.
Okay, please do.
How about I email it to you?
Okay, that sounds good.
And there was an article out recently, and then they talked about this on the news the other day. And I'm not getting off subject, but it's funny that they use these words, that Trump is now surrounding himself with billionaire oligarchs. And I found that fascinating that they use the word oligarchs.
Who's George Soros? Is he not a billionaire oligarch that has been funding the Democratic Party? What about Mark Cuban, also a billionaire oligarch? So let me get this straight. Only when it's a Republican billionaire is it all of a sudden an oligarch. But when it's a Democratic billionaire, the Democrats seem to just playfully play along.
I'm not saying that. No. Who cares about that?
Let's not even talk about Bill and Melinda Gates.
No. We're not. Take away the party's affiliation and all that shit. Fuck that. It's irrelevant at this point. Right. Let's talk about just what is in the cabinet. Let's talk about the verbiage that was said. Take away the Republican, take away the parties, right?
What billionaires in the cabinet?
What billionaires?
There's only one. Donald Trump.
Musk
is no longer. He was never in the cabinet, bro. Dude, he was the head of the.
He only gets 190 days to work in the government, and then that's per year.
Out. Yeah.
Still a cabinet seat.
No, he doesn't have a cabinet seat. He was an advisor.
Running the fucking
Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah.
That's a government employee.
He's not an employee if he doesn't get paid.
Dude, and he did get paid. He gave up his pay. He donated it back. Wow, so he still get paid.
Check that out. To a charity.
That's how he got he is a dude, look him up. This was on the news the other day. He is 100% a government employee.
2-minute warning.
They brought up his salary, right, and how he gives it away. Did you watch the? It just came out on.
We only got 2 minutes. I think we got to go for the closing words and cover this topic up another time, right?
Yeah. Oh, we got 2 minutes, Manny. At the end of the show, we always like to give our audience some advice or education. Anything that you have, a little tidbit from the Manna brain.
Yes. If you, I know things are crazy in the economy. Right, and people get scared and they Google and they just start making phone calls, and whichever one's first they go with. So, a lot of the times, because they're just scared. Don't be scared. Ask the questions. You know what I'm saying? Whoever's representing you should be representing you for you, not for other motives. You know what I'm saying? Well, and that's it. Ask the questions. Or check out my social media because I tell you the questions to ask.
Shout out your social media handles.
You can look me up on Facebook and just run my name, Manny Manna. It'll pop up right away. Not too many Manny Mannas out there in the world.
No, not many. So. Manny Manna has a very catchy name. Appreciate the audience listening to Happy Hour Holidays, man. We really appreciate. We try to bring you education, different dynamic looks and opinions, and it's awesome. This is what we want. People that are successful kind of telling us, hey, this is my view of the world, and it's been awesome, man. So like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any interest in possibly running your own podcast, give us a call, and we can help you out.
Or being a guest.
Yeah. So really appreciate everybody. Peace out.